Okay, I think some people probably will still join, but it looks
Sure.
like we have a good group going, so we can go ahead and get started.
I'm all in.
So first, I just wanted to welcome everybody and thank y'all for joining us for our third webinar. We've started these this year, and I think it's been really great. You can check out our old webinars, our previous webinars on our YouTube channel. They're also on our website, brookstonerestoration.com, under the webinars tab. So you can check those out and just see some great information that we've gotten in the past, and today I'm sure will be no different. We are joined with Arnie Malham. Malham. I knew I was going to say that wrong, and I asked you how to say it, so I apologize. But
Great
Arnie,
recovery. Great recovery.
we're just so lucky and thrilled to have you join us today. Mike, our owner here at Brookstone, said we have to get Arnie nailed down. We have to have him join us. A lot of what our company stands for is based off of a lot of the practices that you teach. Just to tell a little bit about Arnie for those who don't know, he is an award-winning CEO and an 8-figure entrepreneur and best-selling author. He usually wears his shirt that he has on, his Worth Doing Wrong, that, and he just held up his book there, but he also, it's just so impressive. 20 years under his belt as an entrepreneur, sold multiple businesses, just honestly remarkable. And we really are lucky to have you with us today. So
You
thanks for
are
joining
lucky
us.
to have me. Oh my gosh. I'm listening to all these things. It's incredible.
I'm sure there was more to list too.
Oh my. Ask me more. Ask me more. I appreciate it. I appreciate you letting me hang out with you guys and spew my brand of crazy. You will agree with some things. You won't agree with other things. You'll say, how's that possible? You'll say that's not possible. But if I talk about something and you say that won't work for me, like just remember that your competitors are saying the same thing. And if they think it won't work for them, then it's possibly an advantage. So don't always, the things you want to rule out first are often can be the biggest game changers in where we're headed.
Very true. So I wanted to start off, most people who are joining us today probably heard a little bit. They've read about you in the bio that we sent out, different things like that. But just for the sake of the audience, tell us a little bit about your journey, what you did at CJ Advertising, and then paraphrase, if you can, as much as you can, about your book, Worth Doing Wrong.
Well, CJ Advertising it may sound like a very fun place to work, and it certainly was. But when you think of CJ Advertising, you might think of Mad Men, or you think of an advertising firm, and things you can get away with anything there, right? You don't have to be in business for real. And some of that's true. We had fun because we were in advertising, but we weren't your typical ad agency in that we didn't have glamorous clients by any means. Who we did serve were personal injury lawyers, and that was our entire market. We represented a personal injury lawyer brand in every market, including Birmingham, by the way, where we represented Norris injury lawyers and still do. In a huge way. And so they're a brand that's been in Birmingham a long time. Certainly been a lot of folks spending a lot of money over the last few years, but they've been a steady brand there. But just like in Birmingham with Norris Injury Lawyers, we had clients in Connecticut and in Dallas and in San Francisco and Houston. You name the market, we had a brand. Our job was to make them the most liked and well-known brand we possibly could in the marketplace. And when you go, okay, well, what's up with that? Well, think about recruiting talent into an ad agency and saying to folks, hey, we're an ad agency and that's great, but we handle personal injury lawyers. And it's not to disparage personal injury lawyers, but they don't have the best reputation in the business. And so folks would literally say, I don't want you on my resume. Like, that's not the work I want to do. I don't, I have other opportunities. And so our opportunity was to create a workplace that was so remarkable, so worth remarking about, that we overcame this initial stigma, because once folks came to join our organization and got to know the brands that we represented and understood the work that they do to make this the safest country in the country and to compensate folks when things don't go well, then they could get into the role. But to get over the barrier, we had to create a culture that again was remarkable enough to be talked about, to be remarked about. And a lot of the things we developed and a lot of the learning that I did as an entrepreneur came not because it was easy, but because it was hard. Not because it was I got to, but because I had to. And so what I would love to see folks do is turn some of our ideas into things that you get to do, so that you have both the company, the target audience, the reputation you want, and the culture that makes it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we grew we grew CJ from just me and my wife to about 70 team members just in itself. We also had a call center called Legal Intake Professionals. All we did was answer phones for lawyers across North America. We had 300 firms. We were 24/7, 365. That was about 125 people. And then we had about 40 people that helped us do, facilities and HR and IT and all the things to make those companies work. So about 225 people, all different backgrounds, some salaried, some hourly, some more educated than others. And we put together programs so that they came to work happy and they were as productive as they could possibly be.
So you took an undesirable field and made it desirable. Much.
Yeah. And I don't know if I made the field desirable, but I made the job desirable. And I want to be careful. I never want to disparage some of my best relationships in my life are run personal injury brands, and they're great people and they do great work, and their teams do great work. But the initial shock of pulling in a graphic artist or a videographer or a copywriter or a web designer and say, we build personal injury brands, just didn't have the panache. And so the culture had to overcome that. I guess that's the point I'm making.
Oh, yeah. And so is that kind of where you brought in, where did you pick up what you learned and what you speak about in your book, Worth Doing Wrong? Well,
I want to stress this because it's important. It's all R&D. It's all rip off and duplicate. Everything that we did, I'm sure there's an original idea in there a couple of times. There's combinations of original ideas or of stolen ideas that I call original. But in the end, it's all R&D. And I invite anyone that read my book, listen to this webinar, or just out there, don't hesitate to R&D, rip off and duplicate. Yeah, it is okay to do it. It's okay to see a program you like and make it your own. And that's how we did it. And so it was over, I'll tell you, it was my journey at CJ was a 20-year journey. For 10 years, I struggled to be, I struggled to be the leader. Mm-hmm. I was a boss. I was not a leader. I told people what to do. I micromanaged. I was over anxious about stuff. I got stressed a lot when things didn't go perfectly. I was a boss that not even I wanted to work for. And that was a culture. We had to get to that point to realize this isn't what we signed up for. I mean, as a young person starting out, I wanted a company that everyone loved working for. And what I ended up with was a company run by a tyrant and who didn't have a culture that rocked, quite frankly. And it was a moment in time. John DeJulius is a customer service guru that he's out of Cleveland. He speaks all over the world, really, but he's tremendous. And he was giving a speech to our clients at CJ. We were having a conference, and I was my normal stressed, crazy self. And he was telling folks about how to develop a culture of customer service. And one of the statements he made was that culture reflects leadership. Mm-hmm. And those three words hit me at a moment in time when I was upset about my culture, and I was blaming my clients and my people and the industry and the market and everything except the person I needed to be blaming, which was the person in the mirror, which was me. I was a leader. I had exactly the culture I deserved, which was not a good one because I was not being a good leader. I was being a boss. And so it was that point that I started the journey of stopping being, it's not an overnight thing. It's it took me 10 years of learning, growing, ripping off and duplicating, to stop being the boss I didn't want to be and start being the leader that my team, my clients, and my industry needed for us to be successful.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I feel like hearing about your journey, and Mike's told me a little bit about the camel culture that
Yeah.
you kind of named. So can you tell us a little bit about that and how it got started and how you named it?
Yeah, yeah. The naming part is the very end of my book. I love that people to save that story till the end. We
Okay.
may get to it today, but I will tell you that if you can't name your culture, you might not have one. And what's beautiful about naming a culture, giving it an identity, if it's a mascot type character, it's even better. Every great sports team has a mascot, or they try to have a mascot, and it makes the brand more fun and more easy.
Hmm.
But once you name your culture, you're able to put pieces, parts of your culture inside of it. When I mean that, I mean it literally. We had an outline of a camel, and inside the outline, the names of our programs, individual programs that made up our culture, were put in there. And that poster was on the wall. There's a picture in the book, by the way. There's also one online that you could see the programs in your culture, not the ones you started and never finished, not the ones that never took off, not the ones that you thought you did but you realized you never did, but the actual ones in the culture. It's on the wall. Everyone can see it. It becomes a recruiting opportunity. It becomes a retention opportunity. It helps hold you accountable to the things you promised you would do, but it starts to take shape, which is the magic thing, as opposed to this thing that just sort of floats out there. And so we encourage teams all over the place to name their culture. Sometimes it's with a mascot name. Sometimes it's just fun. I'm collecting a series of those. I plan to publish a blog soon that has, here's all the culture names, because people go, I can't think of one. I can't think of one.
Huh.
They're there. You just have to stumble upon the culture that people are using, at the water cooler to describe it, or what you'd love to call it. We called ours camel culture. I'm Arab by descent, so you figure it out. But it was something unique to us and me, and it was something we could grow. And once you put it in there, it's okay to take it back out if it's not working. But keeping that full of the things that you do that range from the frequency of your huddles to how to your holiday parties, to how you give bonuses, to how you recognize tenure, to how you thank each other, to your core values, all the things that make up who you are, your DNA, that make your company unique. That's your culture. Give it a name, give it a shape, and put your culture in your mascot.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that you say mascots. I mean, Brookstone is located here in Alabama, where we've got some pretty big mascots.
There are sports teams there, and there are fans that are passionate about those sports teams, and they love their mascots. I mean, your biggest mascots in Alabama don't even make sense.
I know they don't.
They
We have
don't even make sense.
multiple.
And so don't try to overthink it. Just have, if you can have an eagle or an elephant or whatever makes you smile for your sports team, it's okay, as long as you have something. The worst mistake is not having something, and then you can't cheer. Go.
Right. It makes it easy for people to rally around and come together when they have something like that. I love that.
Exactly. You can put it on shirts. You can put it on mouse pads. You can start to bring it alive. Like, we had an actual mascot. We had camel costumes. There, again, pictures in the book, pictures online. When kids would come visit us, because we were kid friendly, the kids would put their camel costumes on. When we would go do fundraisers or run 5Ks as a group, we always have a camel running as part of the 5K. We were visible about our culture, proud of our culture, and put it out there, so that because we owned it, right? It was something we could own.
That's great. So I think, I kind of mentioned this earlier, that something we're dealing with is just a shortage of staff. We have all the jobs coming in, but I feel like everyone right now, with COVID and being virtual, everyone's struggling with hiring the right type of person that fits their culture.
Yeah.
Making the culture in the business is a different story, but hiring to fit that culture that you've made. What can you say, during the hiring process, if it's virtual or in person, like, how can you determine that hire could potentially fit your culture that you've created?
Yeah. Well, look, we want to create cultures. By the way, everyone has a culture, whether you did it by default or on purpose. You have a culture, and every culture does two things: it repels those that don't fit it, and it attracts those that do. And so it's a very important thing that it's done by design and not by accident, because otherwise you're attracting folks that actually it's a spiral down instead of a spiral up. But the culture starts with how much does your current team enjoy working there? And when I say enjoy working there, I don't mean they come and play ping pong every day, right? I don't mean it's the games at work. It's no one wants, many people, they want an environment where they have autonomy, where they're respected, where they know the guidelines, that they feel appreciated and respected, that they feel like their work counts. Like those are the kind of things, and you can go on and on and on with all that stuff. But when folks come to work every day in your current culture, do they go, I can't wait to contribute, to be appreciated, and to show folks what I got and to appreciate others around me? Or do they come to work and do they go, oh, I can't believe I got to come to work? And I know we all have days like that, but in general, do you enjoy where you work? And that's a culture that can grow. That's a team base that can grow. So it starts with making sure your team internally have positive things, feel positive, feel good about where they work. And then that's the beginning of the recruitment process. If we can't retain our team, it doesn't matter how hard we recruit. There's a hole in the bucket, we're never going to fill it up. And so it starts with, how do I make the team here feel appreciated, have autonomy, make sure they know they're contributing, and you go, oh, look, a lot of things I say, easy to say, hard to do. You do these things not through a cult of personality, not just being the best leader, boss, whatever you want to call it in the world. We do it with programs that fit our core values and our culture and our mission. We do things that make work fun. We don't necessarily have fun at work, but we do things that make work fun. We have programs where we appreciate each other. We have programs where we can nominate folks to be recognized. We have programs where we would send birthday cards home to a team member's family so that they feel part of that love. We have programs where we grow our team. If we can't grow our team, or we can't grow our team members, we can't grow our team. And so we make sure people have an opportunity to learn and grow and become better at what they do. That whether that's through reading, which is my passion, my current world of Better Book Club, or it's becoming better at their trade, right? How do they get better and better and better? Not so they can leave, but so they can stay, right? People say, well, I don't want to train my folks too much because they'll get great and then they'll leave. Well, the alternative is you don't train them and they stay. Like that's a terrible situation. So we have to give folks a chance to trust, to appreciate, and to grow. And if everyone is doing those things, then they're being trusted, they're being appreciated, and they're growing. So we got to create that internally. And then the better than Indeed and LinkedIn and referrals is our team. Our team becomes our opportunity to say, hey, go find other people that this culture attracts and bring them into the family, right? We want to pay a bounty on folks, let folks bring in people that they like and they trust, help them become part of the team, way cheaper than paying. Not that I have anything wrong with recruiting services, because they're great, but it's, what recruiting service would love you even more if you had the kind of culture that attracts the folks that they know that are out there looking for jobs. And so
right.
long, crazy answer to your short question, but it starts with having it right internally, making sure that then we put a megaphone on the people who really matter.
No, I think that's great. I mean, it's hard, like you said, to show that you have a good culture over an Indeed ad or whatever it is. And even just bringing someone in, or even virtually, is much harder. But when people come into the office and they get to meet your team and they get to see, we have brags up on our wall. I think that our owner, Mike, took that from your speech that he heard, but we brag on each other up on the wall, and we get to show those off. And so that is an easier way to do it when you get to bring in the team members. I think that's great advice.
Right. And that, I lost my train, but Jack Daly, one of my other favorite people in the world. Jack Daly, he's a sales trainer, guru, world renowned, super triathlete. He says you can smell a culture when you walk in the door. Now, he doesn't mean you can smell what's in the kitchen or what's having for lunch. You can just tell by the people, their smiles, their attitude, their personality. What are they happy to be there, right? And if folks are happy to be there and they feel appreciated, they give off a vibe. I can come to y'all's huddle and I can tell you how engaged we are. I can come to one of your quarterly meetings and determine how many people are contributing. Like that, the energy you can feel. It's the same in the stadium. Let's talk about sports. Like the momentum gets going, you feel the energy in the stadium, and the team comes through, and it's palatable, it's measurable, you can feel it. And that's what we're looking for in a company culture, is that we smell the culture when we walk in, because it's so good.
That's great. So I mean, we've said a lot about culture, we're using that word, but I'm assuming everyone knows what it is and kind of what it means, but
it can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, Meredith. I mean, we defined it as how people felt about being at work. Okay. That's how, if we, so every month we ask people, this is one of my dark magic formulas that I used. Every month we ask our entire team, 200 plus people, on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst place you can imagine working and 10 being the place, how do you feel about work right now? Like, it's just a bold question. And you're not going to get all 10s. You're not going to get all 10s. Some people just having a bad day. We shot for an average score of 8. If we could be 8 or more on average, then we felt good about it. Other folks, you get a 6 or more, you ought to be happy. But you got to have a starting point, and you got to ask frequently. Now, people say, I don't want to ask because I know what they'll say. Well, then, no, you may have an issue if you're afraid to ask because you know what they'll say, or you say it's too much trouble, I can't do it. The only difference between any company and the folks that they compete with are their people. Like, I mean, I know I have good ideas. I'm absolutely sure Mike has really great ideas, but in the end of the day, it's business, and it's the people that execute on our business that make our business successful. And culture allows execution to happen. That's just how it plays out. Ideas are great, but a lot of great ideas in the world. A lot of people can execute short term, but long term execution only comes with a great culture. So we'd ask every month on a scale from 1 to 10, how we doing, and tell me why. Whether it's good or bad, tell me why. We would publish those scores every month to the entire team, and we would publish all the comments with a response from management and leadership, so that they knew we heard them, that we recognize that we can do better, we can listen more, we can tell more, we can publish more, we can address their concerns. We're committed to making this a culture that helps them be productive, right, above all else, and then so we could respond to these comments like that in a way that we realized that it was our response. And those things held me accountable, but that's how we knew we were getting it right, is our team felt good. And I would ask any leader out there to ask yourself, how do you feel about coming to work? Like, if you find that you're overscoring because you think you have to, but you're like, that's the first test. How do you, the leader, feel about coming to work? Are you proud of everything that's around you, or do you wish you were a better listener, a better coach, a better mentor? Do you wish you led more than boss? Do you wish that you grew more as a person? Like, all these things, it starts with the leader. Culture reflects leadership. How do I feel? How does the team feel? What am I going to do about it? What am I going to do about it?
I think that is perfect. That's a really good strategy. I like that idea. I wrote it down to address the concerns, and not just bring them in, not just ask what they're, how they feel about coming to work, but actually address them. I think that's really important. Do you have any other top suggestions for leaders and companies to help their culture?
This one, because it's such a dark art, I went blurry in my back. Because it's such a dark art, it's like weird. I want to say 3 things. Often when we hear the comments, right, we can get defensive. And so I would tell you 3 things. 1, never read the comments alone as a leader. Always with a group, so that you can balance your response. 2, if your response is they just don't understand, the answer may be because you haven't told them. Right? The fact that your team doesn't understand something isn't because they're dumb. You hired them. Like, I know they have intelligence. The chances are it's because you haven't told them the answer to that. We're not sharing enough information. We're not transparent enough. it's hard for, if you want people to make up the answer, they're likely to make up an answer that is not the right answer. And so we have to share a lot of stuff. And so never read alone. Always realize that if they don't know, that you haven't told them, and that it's always your fault. Whatever their issue is, it's 99% of the time, unless they're just having a weird bad day, the issue they have at work is your fault. You haven't explained enough. You haven't shared enough. You didn't ask before you did it. You didn't think through what the implications of it, and all that's okay. No one expects leadership to be perfect. What they expect is leadership to act, learn, and react. Act, learn, and react. And as long as you're doing that, as long as you can say, that was a mistake, we should have done this, next time we'll do that. And as long as we can grow, as long as we can learn, then the team gets it. It's when leadership ignores the issues completely or gets defensive about the issues that we start to develop problems. And so your question was, what else do you do? Here, look, we measure our morale. That's number one. We got to know what we're dealing with. We appreciate and allow our team to appreciate each other. So massive appreciation for the work that we're doing. And we honor our tenured team members. That was another huge thing, because tenure meant expertise. Expertise meant we were keeping people around long enough to do things really right and learn, more importantly, do things wrong and then figure out how to make it right, which is, we like to say, we do it wrong enough to finally get it right. And it shows new members that there's a future in the organization. And so there's dozens of things. And I put as much as I could into this little thin, like the experiences of CJ culture in this book. But if that's all you did, if you just asked people how you were doing all the time, if you just provided a way for folks to appreciate each other, and you allowed folks to grow, like, come on, those are big steps forward.
What else could you ask for in a company?
Well,
that's great.
I'm going to be clear, because they're both leaders and team members, listen and watching this webinar, and people will ask for everything. They will ask for the moon. And that doesn't mean they get it. It just means you'll consider it. It means that it's out there. It's in the stratosphere. And we always I'd rather have that discussion in public than at the water cooler.
Right. Yeah. I think that's great, because you're right. I mean, it's going to be talked about one way or the other. So if you can have control over it and address people's concerns, I think that's only going to benefit you in the long run.
That's the plan. That is the plan. And so that's how, again, that's how we did it. I'm sharing what we did. Not, I used to make fun of consultants out there that had never really, they're great consultants, but they never really run a business. And so I've run the business. Now I'm more of a consultant. And so I'm somewhere lost in between those two worlds, but this is how it worked for us. And that's the stories I tell in here. These are not perfect stories. These are what we did, what went wrong, and what we did to make them right.
So how do you go about when you feel like a piece of culture that you have tried to implement has run its course, or maybe it did well for a while and now it's kind of slacking? Like, do you keep trying to rebuild that, or what do you suggest there?
Yeah, no, well, first let's talk about everything's a program, right? Our tenure awards were a program. The tenure awards had a champion, someone to make sure that we recognized tenure milestones and got the gifts and arranged everything. They have a checklist, things they're going to do every day, week, month, quarter, or year based on the program, so that they know that they're not missing something. And the third thing is they have permission to get it wrong on their way to getting it right. Every program needs a champion, and the higher that champion is up on the org chart, the more likely that program is going to fail, which is the opposite of what most people think. Get your programs in the hands of the folks that are mid and low on your org chart. If you give programs to people high on the org chart, they lose priority. They get to the edge of the desk. They fall off the desk. They don't get done. If you give your programs, your appreciation program, your tenure program, your morale program, your fun program, your whatever you're doing, like of the 100 things that I'll suggest, the 10 that you're doing, give every one of them to someone different. that is mid to lower on the org chart and let them be the champion, and then let the champions learn from each other. Give each program at least 9 months, not 9 days, not 9 weeks, 9 months to take root, right? Before you start saying that didn't work. And always be willing to take a program out of the system if it's not working, because now we're just beating our head against the wall, something that just doesn't work. We had programs all the time that just lost steam, they lost momentum. The team didn't take to them the way we thought they would, and we retired them, but only after like 2 years of trying, right? And some, they went really well for 3 or 4 years, and then they just didn't have the same steam, or the market change. I mean, the world's changing quick now. So just like hiring, slow to hire and slow when you put a program in place, give it 9 months to get going. And once a program is successful, leave it in place with a champion, a checklist, permission to fail, and for the best results.
I think that's great advice.
Every leader who takes one of our programs and says, they go, I love this, I'm going to go implement this tomorrow. And I say, it will fail. Why will it fail? Because you're the leader, and this will be a priority for the next 10 minutes, and then it's not going to be a priority anymore, and it won't get done. You're right. I'm going to give it to my head of HR. Perfect. I was just thinking your head of HR has nothing to do. Like they were thinking they wish you would bring back a program for you to implement. So now that they can make this the priority, give programs to people in the organization who they have a built-in interest to make a difference. They want to get to know their teammates more. They want to be they want to have autonomy. They want to be good at what they do. They want to have impact. Don't give them all to one person. Like, that would be crazy. Give a program to a person and let them show you how successful they can be.
So I know you wanted to speak about the Better Book Club. Better Book Club. Wow, that's hard to say.
Better Book Club. If you say it enough, it'll become roll right. Better Book Club. BetterBookClub.com. BetterBookClub.com. And I appreciate you bringing that up. I'm so caught up in my own nut thing. This is like, I got it on my little nameplate there. I want to talk about it so much. So Better Book Club is our replacement for Boss reads a book, loves the book, buys 20 copies, comes and hands them out to everybody and says, read this book. By the way, if this happened to you, I'm not attacking you personally. I'm just telling you the truth. That don't work, right? A third of the people you hand the book to will read it. A third of the people will not. A third will skim it and say they did. You will go to a meeting. You will spend most of your time talking about what you liked about the book, and everyone else will just be glad when it's over. This will go on for about 2 or 3 months if everyone's lucky, and then it'll go away. That is the typical book club experience in a company. That's not who we are. We are Better Book Club. We are not read what I read. We are read what makes you a better human, and I'll reward you for it. And Better Book Club has a framework so that we pay people to read. We pay people 25, 50, 75, or 100 bucks to read books that make them better humans, better spouses, better parents, better with their finances, better with their stress, all in addition to marketing and hiring and strategy and all the things that make a company great. The goal is not to get them to read a book, it's to get your team to become readers, because readers are leaders, and leaders make a difference in companies. And so this book, Get Books in Brains incentive program, is in place with over 100 companies across the globe. And we're changing how folks approach book club, as opposed to read what I tell you to read what makes you better and let me reward you for it. That's Better Book Club.
So did this start off as a culture incentive? How did it start?
It started just like I described. I'd read a book. I want everyone on my team to read it. I'd bring it to them. And the last thing they wanted to do in that moment, because they have lives too. They have parents and children and people around them and chores and a weekend away. Everyone has a plan that's not yours. And so I would try to get people to read what I want them to read. And I realized that the only way to create a sustainable program of reading in my company was to let folks read what they want to read. Not romance novels, not science fiction, books that make humans better, which are a huge genre, right? Better people make better teams, make better companies. As long as we can do that and reward them and create that habit, right? Not for everyone. By the way, this program doesn't work for everyone either. Like, there's going to be some percentage of your company that is not going to wear your bling, but a lot will wear this bling because it's an easy incentive. And it's a win-win for them, their family, and for you, the company.
And explain how you incentivize the reading.
It's cash. It's the best possible incentive. You read good to great, you're getting $100. Like, and so you put that in your holiday savings or your trip vacation or your penny jar. But we allowed our team members to earn up to $100 a quarter just by reading a book. If it's a real thin book, it might be like this. It might be 50 or $75, or even 25 books for reading something like 212 or 1 Minute Manager or something like that, right? Just to get you going. But on average, you can earn $100 a quarter just by reading a book or two. And for some, that's all we need to get started to get them on their way to becoming a lifelong reader.
And was there a way of like proving, I guess, that you had read it, or is it all trust based, or how does that work?
It's a lot of trust, but every team member who wants rewards fills out a report, and their supervisor or the champion of the program will approve that report. It's not meant to stumble them. It's meant to just be a slight barrier to getting the reward. And so we don't look to go, oh, are you sure about that? It's, if you got the general idea, we're good. Like, if I tell folks all the time, if you've got team members that are constantly trying to cheat you out of rewards for reading when they're not reading, you have a whole different set of problems, and that's a whole different conversation. But if you generally trust your team, and occasionally someone takes advantage, people taking advantage, one or two people taking advantage of a program is no reason to not let 49 other people enjoy the program. And so we often make rules for the few instead of guidelines for the many, and we waste a lot of time doing it, and we waste a lot of paper. We end up with a policy manual that has more pages than we have people on the team, and no one reads it. Right. So at one point we stopped making rules. We shredded our policy manual, and we created a few pages of guidelines that were in very broad language. There's examples of it in the book on my website, worthdoingwrong.com, where we stopped creating rules for when people did something wrong. We went with guidelines for folks getting it right, and we were okay with the rest. We're okay when occasionally, by the way, the greatest thing to do when someone gets it wrong, instead of creating a rule and 3 paragraphs to explain the rule, just go have a conversation. Just go have a conversation with that person and say, here's where we got to get better. It's freaky how that works.
It's amazing the things that you can learn and what works for people. So I have one more question, and then I'm going to open it up to everybody to see if they have any questions for you. So my last question is, what's your number one piece of advice for entrepreneurs, managers, CEOs, employees in a company, no matter what level? What's your number one piece of advice?
Well, go ahead and let's for the hundreds, possibly thousands of people listening right now, go ahead and type out your questions, because it can be a mad rush to get a question in. And I know you have a question that you want in there, so go ahead and start typing that out. But the number one thing becomes the simple logic of culture reflects leadership. It's not a sometimes thing; it's an always thing. And if you're a leader out there and you're upset about your team or the industry or your clients or the market or whatever is driving you crazy, everything plays a role. But you are the leader, and you have the culture that reflects your leadership skill. And I know that's hard for some people to hear. It was very hard for me to realize. But at the end of the day, the one person that can change the culture on your team, in your department, on your company, in your family, in your gang, in the folks you hustle basketball, play basketball with, every leader has a chance to influence that culture, and that leader is you. That's my number one advice. How we do that, gosh, there's a bunch of ideas in the book. Here's a great place. Go visit other companies. Go visit other teams. Go ask people what they're getting right, and R&D. Rip off and duplicate things that make sense, that make other people better, right? Things that make other people better, things that make you better, things that advance your team. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he was telling me that his team was remote, and that he had to let some people go, and because he didn't think they were getting their work done, and he was measuring their keystrokes on their computer. And that is a way, but that is not the way, right? Let's measure, hey Don, let's measure their output. Let's measure what their response, let's measure success. Let's talk about what success looks like. Let's create a job that they can succeed in, not measure their work, let's measure their output, right? Work smart, not hard, get more stuff gets done. And so all the way back to culture reflects leadership. Look in the mirror, be the leader.
I love that. I mean, that has been just great information. I've literally written a whole page of notes over here. So I have taken so much from this. I'm going to allow anyone to talk who wants to. If you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself.
Happy to talk to any of you, try to answer a question, try to speak from experience as opposed to hyperbole. Anybody?
Oh, hold on. I think Dawn's trying to talk. Let me unmute you.
Dawn, you got something? Oh, we double muted him.
I know. Hit unmute one more time, Dawn.
How about that?
There you go.
One thing we've got here that helps us a lot is that we have a commitment from the team leadership to do things right. I know there are a lot of companies that in our Birmingham area that do the same thing we do, but I know for a fact that they are doing things a little different than we do it.
Right.
But one thing that helps us to take the step toward having a good culture is that the leadership here, start with Mike and his sons and everybody else, everybody wants to do it right. And that just helps us tremendously to come to work. We're excited about coming. We're excited about selling a product that these guys are doing it right. Our TCs do it right. Our leadership, the mid department, everybody is on the same page when it comes to not wanting to take advantage of anybody, but everybody's committed to do the right thing.
And Don, creating that foundation of trust is so important. Like if it's rarely what leaders say, it's always what leaders do.
That's
like
right.
It's I can say all this stuff, but what is it I do? What programs do I put in place? Who do I trust? Where do I give autonomy? Do I go crazy when someone gets it wrong, or do I know that getting it wrong in any decision they make is on a path to them getting it right? Like, how do I react? Where do I park? How do I feel about the break room? How do the bathroom? We cared about what toilet paper was in the facility because that's how much we went into making every day the best day it could be. We had call center people. We had 125 people in the call center, and I often thought I have a cleaner, safer, more supportive environment here than they might have at home, and I took pride in that because I knew how important. I knew the attitude they had to have on the phones every day, and so my job was to create a place that did its very best to reflect that attitude. It started with where I parked, which was in the back, so that everybody else could park up front, and it ended by all the way down to how clean and nice the bathrooms were. Everything made a difference. How we treated our clients, what we tolerated from clients. When we had clients screaming at us, did we let that go on, or did we fire the client? We fired the client. Like we protected our people in a way that made them feel good about who we are.
That all the time. We wouldn't have anybody.
Yeah. So that Don, again, I'm long-winded, long answer to a short question, but I love that you feel that the team's doing the right thing, the right decisions are being made, and it makes it easy on everyone. It makes it easy to retain people, makes it easy to recruit people. Our culture attracts or repels. We want it to attract.
Being the one that's on the front line out selling this product every day, I do not have to lower my head walking into a company selling this product that's been built here. This is a sellable product, a very sellable product. And there are many people who compete with us that don't have the culture that we have here.
Don, I'm with you. I want to be proud of the product I sell, or I'll just tell people, look, that we have these bricks, but ours break a lot. Buy these other people's bricks, right? Or whatever the product is. I want things to work for the client because I want the client to ultimately trust me when I do make a recommendation. And I love that about your company.
So I have a question about the toilet paper and the parking. Did that come from just something that you incentivized, or is that one of those things that you ask people what's important to them, and that's where you got that idea?
Well, the two different stories. I mean, the parking came from when we about halfway at some point we moved from one building to the other, and there came this big uproar about who was going to get to park, and it should be senior leadership, and there's going to be reserved spaces, because one parking lot for about a third of our cars was close, but then another one was, you had to walk a block and a half to get, because of how we were situated. And so I was listening to this argument, and I thought, let me tell you who's going to be parking up front is our intake specialists. They're the ones working the midnight shift and on Saturdays and Sundays and at weird hours and leaving the building. They're paid on average the least, and so we're going to give them the best parking, and then we're going to back up behind that. On the toilet paper, what's hilarious about that one is that it was my son who was interning with us many years ago for the summer. And he said, he just happened to make a comment, why isn't the toilet paper here as good as our toilet paper at home? I'm like, that's a great question. Like, that's a really great question. Let's solve that right now. And so we brought Charmin in, and it was, that was the, that if you can make people happy with Charmin, you're probably doing some other things right. But, Charmin works. Charmin's especially compared to typical commercial. I know we're a little beyond the pale here. Little things matter. Little things matter. Think of places you visit and think about how you feel about them based on their facilities, how they look, how they're maintained, how you feel when you're there.
Well, any other questions before we close out?
Look for the opportunity to make people's day, give them confidence, thank them for their work, appreciate what they do. And if you're lucky, you get a culture where everyone comes to work and says, how can I make someone else better? And at the end of the day, if you have a culture where everyone comes to work and says, how can I make my teammates better? That's a really good culture.
I agree. And I mean, coming from someone who's not, the leadership of the company, I think even I can do that. That's something that I can do. I can make others feel great and make it enjoyable to come to work for them too.
Meredith, I'm glad you said that, because some of us are leaders on the org chart. Some of us are leaders because we have a following, right? And if I have to choose, I'll certainly just take being a leader by the act of people volunteering to follow me than being a leader on the org chart. Both have to act responsible, but every person, the person that from Mike down to the person you hired last week, is a leader. And the question is, what direction are they leading in?
Well, Arnie, and thank you again for sharing with us today, and just invaluable information. I feel like so important, and obviously you've become a pro at all of it, and you get to share it to everyone and anyone that will listen. And just not from you just speaking, but from you've actually put it to work. And
I've done it wrong enough to finally get it right. And I want to challenge you guys as a win for all of us. Consider Better Book Club at Brookstone Restoration. Consider putting a system in place so that people are systematically rewarded for reading, so that they read more, so that they become better humans, make better team members, and continue to make Brookstone the best it can be.
Well, share with us, like how we can get in touch with you, how they can buy your book.
Yeah, Amazon.com, they have so many books, just like mine. You can listen, and if my voice hasn't driven you crazy already, you can listen to my audio book. I recommend it at 1.2 as opposed to regular speed, because I was a little nervous when I did it. But you can listen, you can read. It's on Kindle. I'm at worthdoingwrong.com. I'm at betterbookclub.com. I'm Arnie Malham. It's a unique name. If you Google me, I'm #1. And I appreciate all y'all's support.
Yeah, thank you. And I know just from me reaching out to you that he's surprisingly very easy to get in touch with for someone with the amazing resume that you do have. So they can email you on your website and all of that. And you do coffee chats, is that what you call them?
Yeah, happy to have coffee with folks and help see the path that might be before them.
Okay. Well, thank
Meredith,
you
thanks
again
for having me. Thank you everyone for being a part of the webinar today, and keep rocking forward.
Thank you so much, Arnie. And this recording will be on our website and YouTube channel if we want to share and send out to any of your managers on your team. So feel free to do that. And we look forward to our next webinar. Bye. Thanks, guys.